And welcome to the Femafricmaths channel. We promised you we are taking you on a tour across Africa, and today we are in East Africa. We have our third guest from an East African country. So we are happy to have a guest from Kenya. Yes, Kenya, which I look forward to visiting. And we are very privileged to have Maurine on our channel. So Maurine, welcome to our channel, and we would like you to start by introducing yourself, your journey with mathematics from secondary school to where you are now.
Thank you so much, Angela, for this opportunity, and I'm honored to be part of this. So my name is Maurine Songa. I was born and raised in a village called Rangala in Siaya County. And my high school, I attended high school at Nia Girls High School. So Nia Girls High School is also in Siaya County. And back then it was a provincial school, and it wasn't easy even to get into such a prestigious school because it was considered a prestigious, and I was coming from a school which was just a village school. It was Rangala Girls Primary School. So I was one of the very few ones who made it to such a prestigious school, which was the Nia Girls High School. And from Nia Girls High School, I performed well enough to make it to University of Nairobi. So I went to University of Nairobi and did a bachelor's degree in mathematics. And afterwards, I attended just the same year, just before graduation, I made it to African Institute for Mathematical Sciences. And back then there was only one center, which was South Africa. And they were offering a postgraduate diploma in mathematical sciences. So that's where I was introduced to the postgraduate aspect of mathematics and everything that I could do with mathematics. And when we finished AIMS, as it is commonly known, in 2010, June, they were offering a half bursary for those who wanted to remain in South Africa and advance their degree. So I managed to get into University of KwaZulu-Natal, where I had identified one of the professors, and that's where I did my master's in mathematics. And currently I'm back at UKZN. Sorry, after I finished my master's degree in mathematics at UKZN, I went back home to Kenya. So and tarmacked for about a year, and then afterwards I got employed at Kisii University as an assistant lecturer. But I felt the need to come back to South Africa to advance my studies again. So I contacted my former prof, and I am now back in South Africa at University of KwaZulu-Natal doing my PhD in mathematics.
Wow, that's interesting. So you mentioned that you were from a very small village and you made it to a top school and all that. But what was your motivation, right? Because very often it's hard to believe what you don't see, right? Maybe around you in the village, there probably wasn't a mathematician, there wasn't probably an engineer, a doctor, an astronaut, and all that. But I believe there was something that was driving you. So what was your motivation for pursuing education, especially mathematics, to this high level?
Yeah, so you are right. Growing up, I didn't see many people who even did things like mathematics, especially women. And most of the time, even by the time I had started getting good at mathematics, and I would top my class, and I went to our primary school was just a girls' school. So it was a Catholic school, so it was only girls. And then, of course, you know the way these things are structured, there was a boys' school somewhere, and we would do these exams that were sort of zonal, so the whole zone, and sometimes I would top the classes, especially in maths. And I had so many comments, why are you doing maths? You're a girl, and what will it do for you? Where will it take you? And all of these things. But I could say that one of the greatest inspirations that I had was my teachers, because I think that they saw beyond and they saw what we could do, and they tried as much as possible to get us into maybe spaces that were not considered for girls. So when I was in primary school, I didn't even know that there was anything like a university. So, and we were taught that when you do maths, you are only probably going to be a teacher. And because I got so much inspiration from my teachers, I would say that when I grow up, I would like to be a teacher. But I never even had this concept of being a lecturer. It was always, I want to be a teacher, but not really a primary school teacher or a high school teacher. But I don't know what else I can do with it. But I want to teach. I want to impart knowledge to other people. But there was always, okay, let me do, I love maths, because now I was in a place where I loved it, and the more I was told that the more I wanted to do it. So I would be out there every time, and every time I would solve something that was maybe a little bit difficult to the other class members, I would feel so excited, and I found joy in what I was doing. And that is one of the things that pushed me on. And when I went to high school, it so happened that when I was in Form 1, all of a sudden there was, maybe I should have talked a little bit about this, but I was an orphan and I was raised by my maternal grandmother. So there wasn't so many people that you saw around who made it to. I didn't know there was a university, but there was this center that we attended. And they catered for some of the orphans. Some they paid some. Sometimes they paid fees. Sometimes we would just go there and do some work in the offices. And I had met this boy in in this program. He was also one of those that was being supported, and he came from a village that was close to ours. And through this sharing, he was a little bit older than me, yes, but I knew that he would perform well. And when I went to high school, the first year of high school, which we call it Form 1, this boy had already finished his Form 4, and he had been admitted to the University of Nairobi, and he had been admitted to study engineering. And for me, it was a turning point, because I was like, I used to see this boy, and he was just like me. He was struggling to pay his fees, and we were in this similar program. And this was the very first time that I was hearing about something called a university, that, oh, there was life after high school. There was something that I could do after high school. And University of Nairobi is known as the University of Nairobi because it's so prestigious. And I asked myself, if this boy that I would see comes from this village, he's the first one that I'm hearing, my age, from my age group kind of, who is, and he has made it to this university. That was the time that I promised myself that I too would make it to university. And in fact, I challenged myself that I would make it to the University of Nairobi. And that's what pushed me on.
Wow.
And eventually I made it to the same University of Nairobi.
The University of Nairobi.
Yes.
Wow. And you see, whilst I was listening to you, I was just focusing on things that you stressed on, right? You remember when I asked the question, I said seeing people around you who have gone on to do things very often inspires you, right? And you emphasize the fact that you seeing someone who from your surrounding, right, could break those barriers and make it to the university to study engineering for you made you believe that you could also do that. Wow, that's really profound. But what about that? You mentioned your team. You had some teachers who inspired you and all that. We would like to hear names of mentors. So at Femafricmaths, we believe that mentors play a critical role in your maths journey. So we'd like you to give a shout out to mentors, some mentors that have supported you throughout your journey. Mention their names and the role they played in who you have become or who you are becoming.
Okay. So the shout outs can never be complete It always starts with my primary school maths teacher. I
Yes.
know that maths teachers get the rap for, being very, they are firm, and they really, really pushed. And sometimes, in the African setup, back then, capital punishment was a thing, and we went through that. But still, I like to look at the positive sides of it, and the pushing that they did, and showing us that we could be better and we could do better. So I would like just to shout out to my primary school maths teacher, Mr. Paul Wanga. When I went to high school, there was my maths teacher in high school was Mrs. Odhiambo. She was a lady. She was also really tough. That was my stream maths teacher. But we had four streams, and I interacted very well with the other maths teachers from the other streams. So there is also Mr. Ojuang from the other stream, and there is a Mr. Odhiambo from another stream. When I went to university, also I met very good teachers, and some of the teachers, when I was applying to African Institute for Mathematical Sciences, of course I needed them to give me a reference letters, and I've never seen people who are so so easy to speak to, and they just tell you that, okay, I'm going to write it for you, and they write very good. I always think to myself that probably I was accepted to AIMS because of what they wrote, and there's Dr. James Katende, and there are so many of the teachers. And as for Dr. James Katende, we have even gone on and worked together in some other areas. Um, at university, at postgrad level also, I've met really, really good professors, like the doctor I'm working with right now, Dr. Amiri. He has been one of the best. He has given me all the support that I need in ways that maybe I have never seen any other supervisor do that. So there is Professor Babulal also, and yeah. So I can
Well,
say I could give a shout out to some of them.
okay. Of course, like you said, not everyone will be mentioned, right? But the ones
Yeah,
you could
there's so
remember.
many. Yeah.
So you've mentioned about where you've come from, about your motivation for studying mathematics, and about people who have supported you to study mathematics. I would like to find out if you are also doing projects or outreaches to support young ones, because I believe that you being probably the first PhD from the village doesn't mean that you should just boast with it, right? It gives you some responsibility to also give back. So, what are the initiatives that you are undertaking to support young students? It could be girls or it could be both girls and boys.
Okay. So when I went back home after my master's, it was always a dream for me to one day go back to my high school, which is near girls' high school, and maybe pay school fees for one or two girls. And why was this a motivation? This was a motivation for me because I studied almost throughout my life. I survived on bursaries because I've told you that I was an orphan and I didn't really have much. So when I was in high school, there were there was this organization that came round, and they were looking for children who didn't have much but were performing well, and they were looking to support them by paying their school fees. And I was a beneficiary of that. So it was always my dream that I would one day walk through the gates of my high school and pay school fees, maybe for one or two. And so in 2013, I shared this vision with like-minded ladies, and we all came together and we started contributing just out of our own pockets, and we would contribute. And at the end of that year, we said we wanted to go back home and start from home. So we chose the first two beneficiaries, and so we chose the first two beneficiaries. And so we chose the first two beneficiaries and started contributing started supporting them by paying their school fees and mentoring them and visiting them and talking to them and all this. So initially, I just thought, okay, we are just going to do it once, pay school fees for these ladies, these young girls, and that would be the end of it. But the vision became such a big thing that it actually ended up being born as a foundation. And the name of the foundation is Hope for the Girl Child Foundation. So the mission is to go back to high schools, especially the high schools that are deep, not really in the cities. Go back there and look for these young girls who they are performing well. They have been admitted to these high schools, but perhaps for some reason, it doesn't matter whether they are full total orphans or whether they come from single parent households. We just want to support them and pay their school fees, buy them a few necessities, inspire them, and just talk to them and encourage them that you can get out of that. And so far, it's ended up being something that has exceeded my initial expectations, in that the ladies that we have supported, we already have two who have now have already made it to the university, and they have finished their high school and made it to the university. And one of them just finished in the last exam, and she performed well enough, and she will also be going to the university. Of course, we've had ups and downs with some ladies because, as you say, you can't get, when you go back, especially deep in the villages, and you try to impart this vision onto these young girls. Some of them, they come from such poor backgrounds that they cannot even imagine that somebody is there to pay their fees. And even when you are paying their fees, they have seen so much heartbreak and so many disappointments that they really can't get inspired to even work that hard enough. So we have had ups and downs, but some of the ups is that this year we are going to be sending the third lady to university.
Wow, wow, that's really profound. And see, I have also benefited from scholarships, also from high school. So my high school was also supported through scholarships. University, I got some funding, AIMS scholarship, ICTP, PhD, right? And like you said, there are lots of bright young girls in our communities who all they need is that financial support, right? Because like education is expensive. In Ghana, at least for now, secondary school education is free, so that barrier is taken. But you need to pass it from your basic level before you get it. But in Kenya, for instance, you want the girls to get the best of education, right? You got the best of education through support. So why not support one or two girls who through your support can make it to the university? And it's very fulfilling, right? When you see these girls, like you said, one of them had made it to the university, one is finishing this year and all that. So it's very fulfilling to see maybe a younger you in them, right? That they are also from such backgrounds, but they are also aspiring to do great things. Wow, that's great. So I'll put the links of your the Hope for the Girl Child Foundation in the video. So if anyone would like to support or check you out, they can. Wow, that's really profound. But I also know you're a writer, right? So you're our first guest who also writes. So we like to find out about your writing. So for one of our aims is to show young girls that yes, you can study mathematics, but there are so many things that you could do. You could end up being a writer, a singer, a musician. You could end up being an astronaut, anything that you want to do. So we'd like to find out about your writing. A mathematician who writes. Tell us a bit about it.
Yeah, so this writing journey also comes from the fact that, as when I was in primary, yes, I was good in mathematics, but I was also good in the humanities and I was good in English. And it's not common. People tell you, how can you combine? You can't combine English and mathematics, because people assume that when you're good in maths, you must be bad at English or something. And I've heard that a lot. So, but I was always good in English. And when you even consider, because remember, we were told that when you do mathematics, you can only be a teacher. And there's no teaching combination that you find a maths teacher teaching English. It's not there. It's not, when you find maybe maths, it's maths and physics or maths and chemistry or maths and something, but it's a weird combination to have maths and English. So, but I loved writing, and there are experiences in my life that made me realize that for me, writing was an outlet. And I started writing because when I lost my mother, and there was no outlet, because in Africa, children are taught not to. Nobody cares about children's emotions and how they express them. And back then, maybe now things have changed, but then I couldn't talk to anybody about what I was going through. So I picked up a pen and wrote about it. And when you write about it and you express everything and you cry about it and everything comes out, for me, I found that, oh, this was an outlet. So I started writing. And so when I was at the university, I would tell people that, one day I would want to write a book, just to inspire the next person, to tell people that you can come from all this and still make it in life. So this was actualized in 2019 when I wrote my first book and actually got it out. It was a collection of stories about my journey and my experiences, about everything, even my education, about aims, about growing up without parents, and everything that I had gone through. And the book is called Beyond the Crevices, just to inspire people that you can you can there's life beyond every little challenge that you have, and you can rise through these challenges and you can still make it in life. And those challenges are not meant to keep you down, and this is what you can accomplish even beyond those crevices. And my second book is titled In Dana's Honor. So in my local language, Dana is grandmother. And I grew up with my grandmother, and my grandmother taught me so much. She inspired me so much. She was, to me, there were things that she went through and things that she accomplished at a time that women were not given that voice, and women were not expected to even speak, and women were just there to be told. And even though she grew up in that era, there were things that she already could see beyond, and there are things that she passed on to me that I would never forget. So my grandmother passed on in the year 2012, when I just after I finished my master's. And so it was always my dream that, okay, one day I would honor her. So In Dana's Honor brings together, it's a collection of things that you could say are letters to our daughters or our sons, just short passages of advice and things that can inspire the next generation to rise beyond. And it also has stories about my grandmother, because we are kind of losing some of these stories now. So it has stories about her time and everything that she went through that maybe might inspire the next generation. Yeah.
Wow, that's very interesting. So where can we find these books? Are they available online to be bought, or is it available only in Kenya, or is it available everywhere?
So the two books are both available on Amazon. So you could get,
Okay.
if you are in
All of
Africa,
them.
you can
Oh, okay.
get them. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So I'll put the links. I'll also put the links here. So if you'd like to order for those two books, Beyond the Crevices and the other one about your grandma. Wow, that's really
Yeah.
inspiring. Wow. So, but we'd like to also find out a bit about your professional career. So, we'd like to find
Yeah.
out about your PhD. What are you doing? So, when you tell people you are doing a PhD in mathematics,
Yeah.
they ask you, "Oh, mathematics." Tell us a bit about your research. So, maybe in a minute or two, tell us a bit in layman terms about the research that you are doing.
So in layman's terms, we are trying to use category theory. So category theory is a branch of mathematics that uses objects and arrows to describe things. We all know that things are a bit connected to each other. When you look at maybe even the cell structure in a body, it can't function, a cell can't function on its own. So it needs to be connected to another, and all these has to work together. So this is what we are trying to use. So we are trying to use category theory to understand what happens in space. And so we know that general relativity is Einstein's theory, in which gravity is understood as part of this geometry of space-time. So, and then we have globally hyperbolic spacetimes, and we have uh, globally hyperbolic posets. So a poset is a partially ordered set, and it has some properties. And some research has been done whereby there's a relationship between globally hyperbolic, these posets, and interval domains. And so we know that you can describe the idea of space using interval domains, for example. But interval domains, they haven't been studied so much. So we are trying to study these interval domains and see what nice properties they have. And we are trying to use category theory to do this.
Wow, that's interesting. Yeah. Wow. But I hardly come across pure mathematicians during this interview, but I'm happy at least I could understand some of the terms that you were mentioning. Okay. But before we go, we'll be ending very soon. But before we go, we'd like to find out some challenges you faced as a woman in mathematics. So most of our guests are general audience, but some of them are also young girls who like to study mathematics. So what are some of the challenges you have faced in the field? It could be some technical skills, it could be cultural, it could be institutional, and all that. What challenges have you faced, and how did you address these challenges?
Okay. So some of the challenges I think that we face as African women in mathematics, for example, I would say that first, one of them is that we are not exposed enough, perhaps, to everything that we can do with mathematics. For example, I only got to know a lot about mathematics when I attended AIMS. I had never known everything that you would do with mathematics. You grow up hearing maths is not for women. Why are you doing maths? Why do you choose such a difficult thing? Who will marry you with your mathematics and all this? And then when you even when we attend now the universities back home, we are not exposed enough to everything that we can do with mathematics, because when I was studying, we had to do programming, but we didn't have computers, or we had so few computers that all we could do, and they were old ones that by the time you put it on, the class is almost finished and you don't know. And then so these are, for me, these were some of the challenges. So you grow up, the exam, you will pass the test because it's more of the theoretical work, but when it comes to the what you're actually supposed to be doing, you find that, okay, some people from other parts of the world are taught these things practically so early in life that sometimes catching up becomes a problem. So when I went to AIMS, I struggled with programming because it was my first time being introduced to programming, and I met people who were good in it, and then it's like the train has already left you somehow. So for me, this is one of the biggest challenges for women in mathematics. Another challenge is just the kind of discouragement that we get from hearing about why are you doing it, where will it take you, and all these things. You are discouraged so much about it. And even sometimes when you eventually make it, people think that maybe you just by luck. It doesn't feel like you worked hard for it. People don't believe that you worked hard for it. So these are some of the challenges. Another challenge is the fact that women are expected to kind of start the family life early on. So you at by the age maybe 25, when you tell people that I want to go back to school, and you are single, you are not married, you don't have children, people are raising eyebrows because, okay, who will marry a lady who is so educated and everything? When will you have a child? And all these things. And these are questions that sometimes they bring women down. A woman would feel like, okay, let me settle and have this family because society expects me to. And sometimes it is at the expense of chasing their own dreams. Because, yes.
I was just identifying with all the challenges you were talking about. Yeah, I really identified with it. When I came to Ames too, it was also the first time I was doing programming. It was just crazy. You go and you're given a laptop and you're supposed to code in Python and okay, you have to type in say in tech, then you run and there's error and all that. Even the fear of being behind a computer and all that. But like you said, you go and you see a lot more about mathematics, and you also the train had left, but you also try to try to catch up with that. Yeah, and also about the
Yeah,
discouragement, it's still the same. Yeah,
yeah.
people telling you, yeah, why are you in class with them? They don't understand why a female will be competing with them, but they forget that maths is not for just one gender or one sex, right? It's for everyone who would like to. Then the final bit about family. We're Africans, right? So I remember when I finished my PhD and I came back to Ghana. Yeah, some people didn't really see the PhD as an achievement, right? Because you were getting old, you were not married, and they were just waiting for you to say, "Oh yeah, I'm getting married." Then they'll say, "Okay, yes, you've now arrived." But they forget that everyone has their own journeys, right? In my PhD office, some were married with children and still studying for their PhDs. Some of us we finished before we finally got married. Others too will marry a bit later, but we shouldn't define us based on just marriage because there are so many other things we are doing for not just ourselves but for our society and our country using the mathematics that we do. Like you said, it's a very strong barrier, and you have to be really strong to be able to overcome it. Otherwise, you'll be just forced to get married just to make people happy, right? But whenever it happens, it happens. I remember I got married just last year, December, and people were surprised. Oh, okay, she gets married. They thought I would never get married anyway, but that was just by the way. It's just a matter of time, right? When the time was right, it did. Yeah, but we are almost ending. So you mentioned you were from a village in Kenya. You have risen to become not just a mathematician, a writer, let's say a philanthropist because you have a foundation that supports women and all that. So maybe there's a young girl, like there's a young boy in Western Kenya watching you, right? Our aim is to inspire young girls about the diverse career options available when you study mathematics. And our vision is to see them being confident to take up careers in mathematics related fields. So, what would be your message to them so that they will be inspired and they will be motivated to be confident to take up careers in mathematics? So, in a minute, what will be your final words to a young girl in Western Kenya?
Yeah. I would tell the young girls watching that you only need to look ahead at some of the people who have made it. And when you look out, maybe when you look up to people like us, sometimes the society likes to see, people, not just the society, but everybody would only see the, now you've made it and people like you, but people rarely want to listen to the journey behind and everything that you went through. Know that each one of us, every woman out here who ends up in the STEM related areas has a story. And we can we our stories are some of them are so painful, but still what matters is that we made it. And you when you look at your childhood, don't look at your childhood and think that this is what where I'm meant to be and I will never make it, because all you have to do is look out there and see the women who have made it and know that you too can make it, and just take it in stride and open your open up your mind and know that something like mathematics, there is no prerequisite. There's no place in this world where it is said that mathematics is only for men. There's no wearing trousers or being a man is not a prerequisite to studying mathematics. It's all in the brain. And beauty is so much more than what people see outside. And having a beautiful mind that can understand mathematics and even working hard towards it. It's not just about having a beautiful mind, but you really, really have to work hard towards these dreams and know that when you put in the work, you can make it. So that is
Wow.
what I would tell a younger me or one of the ladies looking at me and saying, maybe, how did she make it? The journey is tough, but you too can make it if you put in the work.
Wow, wow. So I took two things from you. That you should dream beyond your surroundings, right? So the fact that you have a very troubled childhood, or in your environment you don't see mathematicians or STEM people in your, doesn't mean that you should just dream to be in that surrounding, right? You dreamt beyond that surrounding. And you also mentioned that yes, you could have the talent to do maths, but it also comes with hard work, right? You should always
Yeah.
keep working towards that goal. You shouldn't just say, yeah, I want to become a mathematician and just wave a magic wand and you become one, right? You have to
Yeah.
really work towards it. Wow, that's so profound. We can continue on and on, but I think we'll end here for today. Thank you very
Yeah.
much, Maureen, for sharing your journey with us. Like you said, very often people are only interested in your successes, right? But they are not interested in how you made it. That's why we are changing that narrative. You want to see the stories behind these female African mathematicians. Thank you so much for honoring our invitation. We look forward to sharing your story with the world. Thanks
Thank
and
you for
bye.
inviting me. Bye.